experience, hopefully we'll get back to the top. But Liverpool was a very special club for me.
Now, the greatest manager you've worked with based on the playing career, who's the best manager you've played with?
Well, you know, I always say that when you talk about who the best managers are, you have to look at the environment they're working in. And Graham Taylor, my first manager at Watford, was fantastic because he took Watford, my first club, from the 4th division right up to the 1st division, which was the top division, and we finished 2nd to Liverpool without spending money, without having good players. But he was suited to that type of club because he doesn't like superstar players. So he was a fantastic manager and he achieved a lot, became England manager. Kenny Dalglish is a fantastic manager, managing a top team like Liverpool. So there's certain managers who are suited to certain clubs. And I don't believe that just because you are managing, if you look at Brendan Rodgers now, for example, is that more successful in terms of what Brendan Rodgers does for Swansea than Manchester United, Alex Ferguson winning the league? Because could Alex Ferguson go to Swansea and do what Brendan Rodgers does? So the success of a manager, or how good a manager isn't necessarily whether he has won the league or not. So Graham Taylor for me was fantastic. Kenny was great, but Kenny took over a great Liverpool side at that time. You know, so we won the league with Kenny being the manager. Of course, he went to Blackburn and won the league there. Now he's doing very well with Liverpool. Bobby Robson at England. So all managers have got their qualities. So I would like to say who the best was, you know, because they have different attributes.
Right, next one. To play for England, how does it feel like to play for England? Do you really have this sort of media power or pressure to deliver and to get the glory for England?
Well, first of all, I have to say that, you know, it's interesting. I don't know how I played for England because I was born in Jamaica. I came to England when I was 14. My father was military attaché. He was a colonel in the Jamaican army. And he was posted to England for 3 years. So I came to England when I was 14. And he got recalled when I was 17. And just before I went back, Watford, my first club, asked me to play for them, so I stayed to play for Watford. I started playing for England when I was 19, and I had a Jamaican passport. I didn't have an English passport. They didn't ask me. I suppose that back then I wasn't really so what happened was, whenever I played for England and we had our England suits on, we went to Eastern Europe, I would have to get into a different line to everybody else because I had a Jamaican passport, so the England team were in one line, and I with my England suit on was in another line, and the Russians and the Czechoslovakians would look at my passport and say, you're playing for England. And so then the team would have to wait at the airport for 2 hours while I was taking behind to be interrogated or whatever. And I think they got fed up with waiting for me. So the next trip, they brought me a British passport. I remember filling the forms in. So I don't know how I became British. But the point I'm trying to make is when you play football, you play for your teammates and you play for your team. So as much as, yes, it's wonderful to play for England, I would have to say that if I played for Jamaica, I would play the same passion, the same endeavour. And so as much as we like to think that, you know, we are playing for our country, it's great to play for your country, and it is great to play for your country, but it doesn't mean more to me to play for England than it does for the other 21 players for Brunei to play for Brunei. And in England, we look at Stuart Pearce as an example and talk about being British and how passionate he is to play for England. I played for Stuart, with Stuart Pearce for Newcastle. And the type of person Stuart Pearce is that having played 69 times for England, if the very next game, by some magic power, you have to play for France, the very next game, you will be giving 100% of France because you play for your pride and you play for the passion that you have for football. So yes, it was wonderful to play for England because you get to play World Cups, but I don't think I tried any harder for England than I did for Liverpool or if I had to play for anybody else.
Right, the media during your time, are there this kind of pressuring your team, I mean it's the England team, to deliver for England? Or that's what happened during the present days? Well, media plays a very important role for the England team.
Well, we have, as those of you who've been to England, we have some friends from Brunei who were in Liverpool at Liverpool University, so they will know what the British media are like. Let us just say that we have a very special media in England. I know you're very kind here in Malaysia, and just in case, although the news of the world doesn't exist anymore, so I'm quite happy to just talk generally, because in the old days, you have to be very careful what you said. You have to look after microphones and stuff. So the media put a lot of pressure on the England team, unexpectedly, because the pressure on the England team to win when they're not the best team is greater than any other country. So it's unrealistic, and that works against the English team, because they lead the public to believe we're the best in the world, we should win, and then when we don't win, it's headline news. So the media attention and the pressure on England to win, and hopefully for this European Championships, will be less because now there's no manager and a lot of the players are older. Hopefully we're going to go into this tournament in the year 2012 without much expectation. Now without much expectation, maybe we can do something. But yes, the media and football and myself have had a very special relationship over the years, shall we say.
Last question from our member from Liverpool Supporters Club Brunei. He says here, can we have your honest and transparent opinion of the current Liverpool squad, sorry. He said here, King Kenny has the pressure to deliver after the heavy spending. The current squad has been a lot of pressure with their values, and Liverpool is still further behind to challenge for the EPL title. What do you think of that?
Well, first of all, I think with Kenny being back at the club will be unified, because that's what you need. You need unity to begin with, of everybody pulling in the same direction and supporting a cause. Football or otherwise, that's what has to happen. Kenny Dalglish, Andy Carroll, Jordan Henderson has no power over how much money you have to spend to get a particular player, because that is the way that football is these days. It has changed a lot in so far as when I went to Liverpool, I had 6 years at Watford. I had 30 England caps. Peter Beardsley came at the same time as me as the most expensive player, £1.9 million, having had 25 England caps, been at Newcastle for 6 years. So we had the experience playing at the highest level before you got to go to a big club. Football has changed so much now that if you look at Jordan Henderson and Andy Carroll, they have had 1 year's experience at their previous clubs, smaller clubs, Newcastle and Sunderland. So, to expect... Oh, the Newcastle supporter said something. So they've had 1 year's experience, which means that they're very inexperienced players. The fact that they have to pay 35 million and 17 million for them has nothing to do with them or the club. Like, these are market forces. So the expectation on them was great, without them having consistently played well over a period of time, to then say, yes, you are at Liverpool because you have shown that you have been experienced consistently over a 6 year, you're an international footballer. But that's the way football is. So I'd rather reserve judgment on the current Liverpool team, because Kenny felt that these are good players who we can buy for the future. We have to spend a lot of money on them, and with that comes the pressure of immediate success and immediate playing well straight away. So it hasn't actually happened. So hopefully in the coming years, they will improve. They will improve. Liverpool still need better quality, because for too long we have relied on Gerrard and Torres, and now we see relying on Gerrard and Suarez. But what we need is we have to create an environment and a philosophy for Liverpool Football Club, whereby when players come in, they fit into that philosophy, and you can continue to be successful, which is what Manchester United have done. Regardless of the players that come, because of the environment, you continue to be successful. Liverpool is on the start of creating that environment, and at the start of anything, you may not be successful straight away. So I would like to look to the future to say, hopefully in 2-3 years' time, that we can then consistently challenge, not, yes, we can win a cup, and we may win the FA Cup, but consistently challenge to show our true qualities, and that is consistently challenge to win the league, or to be up there winning the league. So I would urge everyone to be patient, and the good thing about football is that if you show patience and you show togetherness, then things can be achieved. If you look at Chelsea, for example, if you keep changing the manager, changing the philosophy year to year, all you do is keep spending money without getting anything. So there has to be a time, like the Germans. If you look at what Germany, the national team, did, they recognize that they need to put the youth system in place to help the German national team in the future. So when they did that, the German national team suffered for 4, 5, 6 years. And you can see what they're doing now. So if you have a long-term vision and a long-term plan, and you put that in place, you then have to say, maybe for 1, 2, 3 years even, we will hopefully, yes, we will be challenging, but for us to live consistently after that period, for the next 10, 20, 30 years, to continue to be successful, we may have to put up with these 2-3 year period before we get to that stage. And I think that's where Liverpool is at the moment.
Thank you very much, Mr. John Vance. Now I'll open the floor to any media or whoever who want to ask some questions to Mr. John Vance. Anyone from the media? Yeah, we have that? No? Okay. Anyone? Yeah.
Mr. Vance, I was just wondering, which of your goals are, which of your goals are your favourites?
Well, I mean, coming from Jamaica, I'm sure here of those of you old enough in United to remember how great the Brazilian team were. We love Brazilian football. And Jamaica is no different. I suppose in the last 10 years, because Brazil aren't the team they Spain, but when I was growing up, Brazil were the team to beat and the team to aspire to be like. So, particularly coming from the Caribbean. So to score against Brazil in 1984 when we won 2-0, although it was a friendly match at the end of the season, I think the Brazilians were sambering or partying, so I don't think they were trying too hard to stop me. But nevertheless, to score a goal of that quality in the Maracana Stadium was fantastic for me. My favourite Liverpool goal was the goal I scored against Queen's Park Rangers my first year. And why, as much as yes, Queen's Park Rangers were, they beat us 3-2 a couple of days ago, didn't they? So we beat them 4-0. And why I'm talking about that goal is because Queen's Park Rangers were a very good team back then. They were third in the league. And the interesting thing about that, for myself, why I enjoyed that goal and that game was I had just come to Liverpool previously. This was probably my 4th or 5th game for Liverpool. And at that time, Everton won the league the year before. Ian Rush left to go to Juventus. And Liverpool were going through a transitional period. So I came, Peter Pearson came, John Aldridge came. So there was a little bit like when, Andy Carroll and the players are coming out. So there's pressure on us to perform. And as much as there's pressure to perform, at that particular time, Ian Rush had just gone to Juventus, but he came back, and that's his first time back at Liverpool, and that was his first game. So just before the game, Ian Rush came into the stand, and the whole stadium stood up and started to applaud Ian Rush. So of course that made us even more nervous, because if we don't perform well, and there's the kid who's not here anymore, we don't play well, so it's going to be hard for us. So the very fact that Ian Rush was there watching us put even more pressure on us. So to beat Queen's Park Rangers 4-0 and to score the goal that I did was a very pleasing thing. My favourite goal was Watford versus Peterborough in 90, but who cares because no one was there. And you don't even know what I'm talking about. So the point I'm making, a goal is a goal, and I scored great goals for Watford. But when you talk about goals, you have to talk about goals that people remember. My very favourite is against Newcastle. This is Newcastle supporter here. My favourite game was Newcastle 4-3. Do you remember those two? He's called me over Bob, by the way, so I tease him.